In our studio, I don't teach competition. I teach community. Personally, I want to live a really large, well-lived life. Having regrets is not something that I am interested in. Hi, everybody. I am Crystal McDaniel, and this is The Naked Singer. I am so excited to be with you today. This is our very first podcast. I've been working very hard to get this together for you. So we're going to just jump right into our topic of motivation, and we've been talking about that on the blog site, which is www.TheNakedSinger.com. And the last couple of subject matters have been covering motivation, and some of it has been talking about explanation and excuses. And we're going to be going into that a little deeper today. But right off the top, I'm going to give you a little background on who I am and why The Naked Singer and why I'm doing this podcast. When I was born, I talked early and I walked early, which is not a real surprise to those people that know me well. And by the time I was 18 months old, I was doing my first solo in church. Yes, I said 18 months old. I was one of those freaky babies that could do things like that. So all my life, pretty much, I wanted to be a singer. When I was 6 years old, I wanted to be a carpenter because my papa, my grandfather, was a carpenter, and I wanted to be working with my papa. But I wanted to be a carpenter and a singer. And somewhere along in there, I wanted to be a veterinarian and a singer. And those who know me well know that I have some rescue dogs, and I have always been a big fan of animals. In fact, my family used to call me Ellie Mae when I was little. So if those of you that know that reference to the Beverly Hillbillies, they always called me Ellie Mae because I loved all animals and still do. So, but the main thing I said all the time was I want to be a singer. So I've really pursued that my whole entire life. In 1996, however, I moved to North Carolina and I started McDaniel Music Studios. I did that because my children were very small and they were sick. There were several medical issues that they had, and I wanted to be able to stay home and make a living and work with them. At that time, I had gone through a whole lot of stuff. I had a broken marriage and 3 small kids, and they were sick. And just a lot of things that we'll go into in depth later on, because this is the Naked Singer, and obviously the name lends itself to saying that I'm a very transparent person, and I think transparency is very important in life. So, but today I'm not going to go deeply into that. I'm just going to tell you it was a very dark period of my life. So, as I did that, I started the studio. I had developed anxiety and depression and panic disorder. I also developed agoraphobia and really, really struggled. So one day in all this struggling, I looked in the mirror and I looked myself in the eye and I said, Crystal, this is not who you are. Where did that girl go? And I picked up the phone and I found a therapist and I talked to him. And I just broke down and cried and cried and cried as I had him on the phone. And he said to me finally, would you like to make an appointment? And I said, yes, because that's why I was calling. And from there, I started working on myself and making myself better. The interesting part of that is in the midst of all of that, I still was working on bringing McDaniel Music Studios to life. Now that at that time I had very few students, and honestly, I literally prayed for God to just let me make $100 a week. If I could make $100 a week, I was going to be the happiest human being in the entire world. So, hitting the goal of $100 a week was a big deal. I finally did that. And so I set another goal and then another goal and then another goal. And as the years went by, we've been in business for 26 years now, and as the years go by, I can tell you that I make a lot more than $100 a week now, which that's a very exciting thing to be able to say. One of the reasons that I was able to do that is because I stayed motivated and I kept myself motivated. And honestly, I don't know that I had the healthiest motivation in the world back then because I was harboring a lot of anger and a lot of disappointment and a lot of bitterness. And honestly, I hadn't learned to forgive yet. So I let that fuel me, though. That energy still fueled me to do the things that I wanted to get done. I had 3 small children. They needed to be clothed. They needed food. So, and I needed gas to be able to do certain things for them. So I really just kept my brain focused on those particular things and let that help fuel me to keep going and keep going and keep going. Now, that's not to say that I brought all that anger and bitterness into the studio. I didn't. I worked very hard to keep that part of my life separate from my students because I feel like everyone needs to be encouraged. So I started thinking about all the things that I never received as I was small, and I wanted that for other people. Where I came from, it's a very poor area in a very small town, and so I wanted to be able to do something better for the area that I'm in. Now, I'll tell you that our little town has one stoplight, and in that one stoplight town, I began a studio that has students all over the country now. So that's very exciting to me to know that I did that. We really built things from below ground zero. And now we have students at NYU, and we've had students to attend Boston University and Berkeley and Belmont University. We've had them at UNCG. I mean, I can just go on and on and on about the places that my students have been able to get into because of our philosophy of encouragement and championship. So none of the things that I was going through, I allowed to flow into the studio, and I wanted those things also for my children. So I knew I had to get rid of all the bitterness and anger and non-forgiveness for things. So I really, really worked on those things. And that's what helped me keep motivated. And, you know, at one time, my husband actually asked me, my husband's name is Nelson, and he's in the room right now videoing and taking photos of our first podcast so that we can do more on social media. And my husband asked me, "What are you doing?" And I answered, "I'm saving the world one singer at a time." So I really have always looked at it that way because where things didn't happen for me when I was growing up or things that I wasn't able to achieve and I had to really dig out and find, because at that time there weren't, internet. There wasn't internet. There wasn't all of this information. I really found my things on brochures that were posted on bulletin boards at school, or whatever I could find. My main source of learning about how to sing and perform and do things on stage and act, my main source was the TV show Fame, because back then that was all there was. And I had this little black and white TV. Yes, TV used to be black and white, kids. I had this little black and white TV, and I would watch this TV show Fame, and I thought, I want that in my life. So I drug my parents to auditions all over the place at theme parks and stuff, and I would wear my little leg warmers and my little headbands because that's what they did on Fame. And I just kept going and going and going. I used to think that was totally ridiculous. And then my my good friend, Eugene Broncoviano, he said to me, "Crystal, that was you learning. Don't look down on that. That was you learning, and that was you putting your best effort forward. Nobody was teaching you. You were teaching yourself. So Don't ever frown down on that situation. Know that you were putting yourself out there. Even though you didn't know what you were doing, it was another learning situation. So I just kept going sort of like that. Eventually, I went to school and I studied vocal performance. I studied at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, which I absolutely loved. I loved every moment of being in college. College was my fun. It was just my jam. I was surrounded by people that were like-minded, and they helped me. Even though I was busted and broken and damaged, they taught me so much about taking responsibility and about showing up on time and doing my best. I'm going to tell you, I probably was not the best student in the world. I had a lot of damage. And that really affected how I studied because I didn't always feel like I was good enough. I didn't always feel like I was smart enough. I didn't always feel like I I had really everything it took. I didn't know how to study. There were just a lot of things. So there were many, many, many things that I had to teach myself. I also had to put myself through college. So I paid for it every single cent. I worked full time and went to school full time. I ended up getting my master's degree also in vocal performance at the very same school. So I'm going to say go Mox, yay UTC. Um, you are my people, and I love you there. Thank you for all the support you've always given me. So over the years, as I've said before, I've taught hundreds of students in this little one stoplight town. And we do more in our studio than teach voice. We train people for life. I want all my students to be great singers. However, more than that, I want them to become great human beings, which is much more important than ever being a great singer. So we do a whole lot of digging into ourselves and seeing what our motivation is, seeing what our fears are, seeing what the thoughts are in our head. In our studio, I don't teach competition. I teach community. There's a really big difference. Our world is competitive enough. So I do not want my students to be against one another and think of each other as competition, even though at times they are in categories together or in auditions together. I want them to be supportive of one another, respectful of the space each other needs, and then to cheer one another on and genuinely be happy for each other when one wins and the other doesn't. And when the other doesn't, I want them to surround them with support. So community and culture, a culture of supportedness is very important in our studio, in our lives. I need to tell you that anything you do, build your own culture. Choose what type of culture that you want, and then do that culture. That is very, very important. Like I don't want people in my studio that are jerks. I mean, that's just the bottom line. If they don't want to work hard, they really don't need to be here. One of the first things that I tell my students is I'm a kind teacher, but I am not easy. And I'm going to lay it out there for them, but I'm going to walk out life with them. And they know that they have my full support always. And I tell them, past their family should be their number one supporters. But past that, I'm their number one fan, and I always will be. And it doesn't matter where they are in life, I will always be their number one fan. And that's what I work at for my students. And as I said, the motivation behind that for me hasn't always been the most positive, but I do know that I've turned it to a positive because I look at it like if I did not receive it, what I want for others is to give them what I did not receive. So if I didn't receive love and support, then I give love and support. If I didn't receive encouragement, then I give encouragement. And I think that that is a really important thing that we need to do. in our lives, in our teaching, in the cultures of our business that we create. We need to appreciate people and encourage them all the way to bring out the best in themselves that they can be. Now, how do I keep competition from coming in between what I call vocal athletes? Yes, I call them athletes because they have to use all kinds of muscles and train and practice just like any other athlete does. So, how do I do that? Well, one of the things I do, I don't play favorites in the studio. The student that is in front of me is my favorite student. And that's just the truth. I give them my time and attention just like I do anyone else. So that when we get together for events or workshops or go on trips, whatever we do, I spend equal time with them. I cut up equally with them. I know about their lives. I know what they're going through. And we talk about that together. And I just try to make sure that they know that they are loved equally by me. And so I just don't have a culture of favorites. So, and that's, I think, is very important that the person that is in front of you should be your favorite. And that's what helps us not have a, dissension in our ranks here in the studio. We say I love you to each other in the studio. If I hang up the phone with a student, I usually say I love you before I hang up, and they do too. If we are Zooming because I have many students over Zoom or FaceTime or whatever video conferencing that they need to use, I usually say I love you before we hang up. I do love each and every one of my students. And one of the first things we tell them that my children started, actually, since our studio is in our home, the children, when they were little, started looking at everybody and going, "Hi, it's nice to meet you. Welcome to the family." So we try to make McDaniel Music Studios a family culture where all of us support one another all the time. And I think that is important. We don't judge them. There is no judgment here. If there's any judgment coming, it comes from the singer themselves. It doesn't come from us, because we want them to be able to have a safe space. And I think creating a safe space for ourselves as well as for others, that's just really massively important in life. We all need that safe space to where we can mess up and know we're not going to be judged. Know we're going to get encouragement. And I think that those things are very important. This is how we did it from the very beginning. And this is what we have consistently done over the years. We expose our students to as many outside opportunities as we possibly can. I have a teacher in New York City. I continue to study and have for years. I've studied with him for over 20 years now. His name is Neil Seamer. Neil Seamer, can you believe it has been over 20 years? It just seems impossible to me. But I take them up periodically to New York City to do master classes with Neil. Neil is considered one of the best, in my opinion, the best voice teacher on the planet Earth. And we teach from that. And they get exposed to that. We take them to shows. We bring in other experts. My friend Eugene Brancoviano is a Tony Award winner. And so we bring him in from San Francisco. He helps me with workshops, and we train them doing that. We just try to do a lot to improve our students and give them opportunities and show them what it takes to really be a singer and keep them motivated for what is possible in life. If I hadn't had that little black and white TV that showed me New York City and fame, and I probably would not have realized what was possible. And I try to bring that to each of the students. since we are past that in our technology, I can show them much more. I would have done just about anything to have had YouTube back then. I mean, that would have been totally great. But I didn't. I had cassette tapes. And what I used to do is I would sing along with Barbara Streisand. And my brother actually had some sound effects, soundtracks. And I would play like Coliseum applause or whatever after I did it and pretend I was in a Coliseum or an arena doing big concerts and all. And that's how I kept myself motivated when I had nothing. And now that we have more, I try to give the students more. I try to give them, like I said, what I don't and did not receive. What motivates us to keep going in a one stoplight town? Now, there's a question because I have to drive an hour to pretty much get to anything. And I have to, so, for me, honestly, I don't mind getting on an airplane and going to New York. And I don't mind driving that hour to get more culture and more exposure to things. I do use YouTube a lot. I read a lot. So I try to make sure that I bring all that. If I don't have time to go, I bring it to myself. And that is a really good thing. If you read the blog, you'll find out that the definition of motivation from the Merriam-Webster dictionary defines motivation as the act or process of giving someone a reason of doing something or a reason for doing something. The condition of being eager to act or work. And people are motivated by different things. Some are motivated by hunger. Some are motivated by money. Some are motivated by despair. Some are motivated by family. Some are motivated by fear. Some are motivated by love. You name it, and the list can go on and on and on. As I said earlier, my initial motivation was fear and anger and desperation and disappointment and just, flat out wanting things to be better and envisioning in my mind a life that would be better for me and my children than what I had gone through. So that's definitely a motivation. Now my motivations are love and family. And I'm not going to lie, I still have fear. One of my motivations is fear because honestly, I don't want to be go to old age, and get into my later years and then look back on my life and have regrets. Having regrets is not something that I am interested in. That is what keeps me motivated and moving so that I just don't live in regret. To me, that's a very sad state. So I just keep going. But then I also think positive things too, like just this podcast. I was very motivated to do this podcast. I'm very motivated to see my students succeed. I'm very motivated to make sure that my children, Jacob, Rachel, and Rosemary, have all that they need and become everything that they can become. And I try to encourage them and go and watch them. Jacob has his own podcast, and he talks about, he's into League of Legends, so he has a podcast about that. It's called League of Lore. If you're interested and you're a gamer and you want to know about that, you can go to Spotify or wherever and find Jacob's League of Lore podcast. My daughter Rosemary's getting her master's degree in literature and Shakespeare. So, of course, I probably said that totally wrong, and she's going to go, "Mommy, you didn't say that right." But she's doing that. She's very smart and motivated and quiet the mind and a creative, fun, beautiful young woman. My daughter Rachel, the beginning of this podcast, you can hear her music. She's into media composition and attends the University of Miami and getting her master's degree in media composition. So I'm surrounded by creativity and talent, and we try very hard to support every single one of our children equally because I want them to keep that motivation going. Personally, I want to live a really large, well-lived life full of generosity and love and joy and accomplishment. I want my life to have inspired others and to inspire them to shine their own light. I think shining our light is very, very important. And it's not just trite. I know that some of us remember the little children's song, "This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine." We remember that. But it's not just a children's song. It actually is a light that we are in the world. And when we shine our lights, it helps others to be able to shine their light too. It helps them to be overcome too. And that helps with motivation. Another thing is that if you're having trouble being motivated, you're not always going to feel motivated. I don't always feel motivated. People are shocked when they find that out. They're shocked when they find out I had agoraphobia and anxiety and panic disorder, and I still do. Bottom line, I still do. Most people are shocked also to find out that I'm an introvert. I am not an extrovert. I'm an introvert. And I had rather be left alone and just, to do my own thing. But I choose to put things out there. I can't be a singer and keep myself held up as an introvert. So I have to keep myself motivated. And I don't always feel like doing that. I would say there are 365 days in the year, and I'm only motivated for 20 days. So that's 345 days that I don't feel motivated. Like, I don't feel motivated to go clean out my refrigerator. It's necessary, but, I don't feel motivated to do that. I don't feel motivated always to make up my bed. I really don't. I get around to it, but I don't always feel motivated to do it. I don't always feel motivated to clean the bathroom or mop the floor. And honestly, I don't always feel motivated to practice. Practice singing, practice writing, practice doing whatever that I'm trying to practice to do. I don't always feel motivated to do that. But the thing is it has to do with the word feeling. If we go by our emotions and we just don't feel like it, we won't ever do anything. But once we take that step towards doing it, like cleaning out the refrigerator, if I spend 2 minutes cleaning out the refrigerator, then I'm going to keep going cleaning out the refrigerator. And suddenly I find the motivation to do that. If I need to work out and I don't feel like going and working out, then, if I just take that step and go do that, I feel in a minute, I will feel motivated to do that. So it's one of those things. And I think we put too much attention on how we feel. Motivation is not a feeling. It's an action. So just know you're never going to really feel motivated to do anything. And you're certainly not going to feel that motivation every single day to be consistent, because consistency is how you have to build things. To learn to forgive, I had to literally, and I continually have to consistently let go of stuff on a daily basis, sometimes minute to minute. And that's why I have learned to forgive more quickly and more easily. Those things are practice. I have to practice that every single day, just like I have to practice my singing, just like I have to work out. And I have to think about it. And I have to put effort into thinking about that goal and thinking that this is the way I have to do that. And I don't feel like it, but I need to do it. So sometimes I use Mel Robbins' 5-second rule. I go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now just get up and do it. Because the bottom line is that we've got to use that Nike slogan, just do it. Sometimes I have to just face myself and kick my own butt and say, Crystal, get up and do it. Nothing comes from nothing. So if you want to do something, then you've got to actually do something. And I'm going to say that again. That was pretty good. Nothing comes from nothing. So if you want to do something, you've got to actually do something. One of my favorite quotes, and I don't know who quoted it, but one of my favorite quotes is, to know and not to do is not to know. I'm going to say that one more time. To know and not to do is not to know. There will never be the right time for you to do something. Now, I want you to know there's a difference between not feeling like doing something and not being emotionally available to do it. That's a totally different thing. And I evaluate myself, and I teach my students to evaluate themselves on whether they are emotionally available, not whether they don't feel like it or not. Because not feeling like it is just us deciding, whatever self-talk goes on in our head, we're going to go with that. Where not being emotionally available, you may have gone through something like a death in the family, or, being fired from a job, or, you name it. Whatever the devastating event was. When you think about that, that's when sometimes you're just not emotionally available. If somebody has been abusive in your life and they keep calling you and calling you and calling you and want you to be a part of everything, sometimes you're just not emotionally available. And sometimes you just need to cut that off. And I think that's a totally different thing when it comes to motivation. So I always evaluate it is, do I just not feel like it, or am I not emotionally available? Because if my cup isn't full, then I'm not going to do it, because I like to do things from an overflow, not from a tapping into my reserve. If you understand what I mean by that. Like if you have a teacup full of tea and you keep pouring and it goes over onto the saucer, that's what you give to other people. But you fill your own teacup first, and that's really important. So if my teacup is not full, then I am not emotionally available. If I'm not emotionally available, then my answer is going to be a hard no. And I mean a hard no. I don't necessarily consider myself a stubborn person, but when it comes to that, that's when I'm going to dig my heels in and go, no, I'm not going to do that, because I'm not emotionally available. I don't have anything to give for that. The right time to do things is always now. I'm going to say that one more time. The right time to do things is always now. When I finish this podcast in just a little while, it will be now. So the time that we're spending right now in this moment will pass, and then it will be now again. So there is no future and there is no past, because the past is over. So it's now. So now is the time to always do things. When I decided to start this podcast, I felt this magnetic pull, not pool. I have a pool in my backyard, but I'm not in it. So I mean pull. I felt a magnetic pull to do it, and I knew I just had to do it. Now here in the South, if we're church people, we call that a calling. And I felt a calling to do this particular podcast. And I knew that I had to do it now. Now was the time. So I say to you, if you've been thinking about doing something for a while, do it now. Now, maybe you don't have the funding at this particular moment to open a boutique or start that race car team you've always wanted, or to restore that car you've always wanted to have. But can you start putting $25 a week back for that? Can you stop going and getting coffee and take the coffee money and put it in a jar and then start a savings account and start doing that, because that money is going to build and build and build and build. And then start not just saving that money, but start doing something towards that every single little day. Every day, do something towards that. Like find a book. Go to the library. The library is a good source. Start learning about it. Start becoming an expert at it. Start gathering up your supplies for it. Whatever you have to do, but do it now. Because we're not promised any other time but right now in this moment. So now is the time to get done what you want to get done. And that's another reason that you get motivated, because in life, it's too short just to sit around and be bored at whatever it is that you do and then wait for the weekend to have a life. I think every day we have to choose now to actually have that life. Okay, so as we think about that, I'm going to give you two kinds of activities that I do that actually help me with this. And I call them above the line and below the line activities. All right. So the above the line activities are things that you absolutely have to get done. They are hard priorities. For me, they are spending time with God and working out, organizing our finances, setting time aside for family, friends, especially my husband, working with my students, maintaining my home, and writing my blog and doing this podcast. Those are my above the line priorities. Although Pip and Jace, Blizzard, and Tanky probably think that they're part of that above the line list too. So I would say that they are. Those are my 4 rescue dogs. So they get the carved out time because they love me and protect me, and they need me. So I have to say they're above the line activity as well. All of these things take priority over everything else. The below the line activities are activities that I need to do or I've been asked to do that aren't as urgent. So until I can rotate off something on the above the line list, then I'm not going to do any of the below the line list activities. And I use that system for every one of my priorities that are generalized above the line. So let's say I'm organizing our finances. I'm going to give an example of that. I'm organizing our finances, and on those finances, there is a bill that needs to be paid, but it's not an urgent bill. So I might put that bill below the line until the next paycheck cycle, and then I rotate it above the line because I have all the other ones already taken care of. Or at the end of the month, and I'm using this as an example too because I don't want anybody to think that we're desperate or anything, but I'm going to say at the end of the month, say it's the 25th, and you only have $100 left in your food budget, but you really want to get takeout or go out to eat. Well, I'm here to tell you that going out to eat, if you only have $100 a week till the end of the month for your food budget, going out to eat or getting takeout, that's a below the line activity until you can get the next paycheck cycle up and re-budget for things, and make sure that you always put a budget in for, takeout or going out to restaurants. And that's how I deal with the above the line and below the line activities. So like I said, that happens with everything so that I don't get overwhelmed and I can break things down from what actually needs to be done as opposed to things that actually can wait. And that really, really is helpful for me to do that. So we're going to go on to self-talk. Self-talk, I think, is the most important part of our lives. God and self-talk. And I'm going to put those hand in hand because God wants us to have good self-talk. And I'm just letting you know that that God actually approves of good self-talk. So if that weren't true in the Bible, Paul talks about it, and it wouldn't be in the Bible. So if it weren't a truth that we need to follow, that it wouldn't be there. Because Paul in Philippians chapter 4, verse 8, he actually says, finally, I almost said financially because I just was finished talking about a financial example. That's really funny. Finally, brothers, this is Philippians 4:8, back to the Bible. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, anything excellent or praiseworthy, think on these things. So we need to be thinking in our self-talk about those things, about ourselves and about everyone around us. When I first moved to North Carolina many years ago, I was very depressed, like I said, and my self-talk was awful. My self-talk was terrible because I thought I was just a big failure. I just felt like such a failure and that my life was over. Well, obviously my life wasn't over because that was years ago, and I'm right here on a podcast, and things are greatly improved, and I have to say that my life is pretty darn wonderful right now. So and I'm not going to say that bad things aren't going on and bad things don't occur and bad things have not happened. I am just saying that I'm choosing to know that no matter what, it's still okay because I have all I need right now. Now, I want you to think about that. I have all I need right now. You have all you need right now. If you are listening to this podcast, you have something to listen to it on. You're probably sitting somewhere warm. You've probably had food. You probably have a bed to sleep in tonight. So you know what? You have all you need. And you need to let that soak in for a minute. And that's a question that I have to ask myself every time I start feeling bad or listening to that terrible self-talk. I think, do I have all I need right now? And when I say yes to that, then I'm good. Then I know that I'm blessed. And I have more than 90% of the world's population. So I have to be grateful for that. Really, really grateful for that situation. So our self-talk is massively important. I feel like there are 3 parts of us, and I read this in a book. I feel like there is my essential core self. And the book that I read is Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now, which I do recommend. And I've got a list of books in just a moment that I'm going to tell you that are very helpful to me that I'm going to recommend to you. But in this book, Eckhart Tolle describes it as there is our essential essence self, which is the eternal self, which is, the self that is real and eternal and nothing can shake it. And then there's our pain body. And then there is the anxiety or the egoic mind. Now, the pain body is always about the past, and the egoic mind is always about the future. But when we come back to our true essence and stay connected to God in our true essence, then that's who we really are. And we don't need to identify with the pain body, or we don't need to identify with the egoic mind. And I totally agree with that, because I don't want to spend my time in the past looking back on all my mistakes. And I don't want to spend my time in the future looking at all of that and letting my thoughts be like a dryer with clothes in it, just tumble and tumble and tumble and tumble. My assistant Mara says that, and I just think that's a very good description of how we do. We let these thoughts just tumble and tumble and tumble and tumble. And instead of just opening the dryer and taking them out and starting folding it one at a time and knowing that we just keep it tumbling. And That is not the way we need to be. We need to stop our self-talk and our negative self-talk and realize that we have that in our head, and we need to start telling ourselves good things about ourselves, because obviously the Bible says that we're supposed to think on these things. And so we need to be thinking about what God thinks and what our essence tells us that we are. One of the reasons I was able to start this podcast is because I knew in my core that there is more to me than anybody has ever seen or imagined, or I have even seen or imagined. And I have always believed that deep down inside, that there is more in me. And if I can just tap into that, then there is an infinite supply of support and love that I can give to myself and then give to others. And I feel just it's just me. I feel like that comes straight from God. So, but you can call it whatever you want. That's just where I stand on it. And that keeps me going and motivated, because I know that there is more to me and more in me than I can ever even imagine. I have students that think I am powerful, and I don't think that I'm powerful. I most of the time feel like I'm powerless, but the bottom line is, am I powerful? Yes, I'm powerful because I know that I tap into that core essence that's eternal. And because I do that, that's where some of my motivation comes from. And that's where the power comes from. And I think that we all need to tap into that, into ourselves. In my studio, there are 4 things I do not allow my students to say. Now, in my earlier blog, if you go back to the blog site and look, you're going to see that I only named 3, but my student Skylar Smith reminded me yesterday, as she was helping me do some stuff for this podcast, she reminded me that there's actually 4. So you're right, Skylar, there's 4, and I am... I'm going to be naming that, and I'm going to say thank you to Sky. And right now I'm going to take time for a really shameless plug. Check out at Sky Fitness, SKYY Fitness on Instagram, and you cannot also miss grabbing some of her fitness wear. I just want you to know that this young woman has started her own fitness line, and it's called Limitless Activewear, and you can find that at Limitless, LIMITLESS Limitless Active on Instagram. It is the best I have ever had. My husband even loves how it looks on me. I'm just saying, ladies, that's just the way it is. Okay, so back to the 4 things. The first one is, I don't know. I don't allow my students to say, I don't know. Okay? I don't know is a child's answer, and it usually means I don't want to tell you, or I don't want to do the work to find out the answer. So I don't allow that. I don't allow the saying I can't. Bottom line, yes, you can. You just don't want to. That's it. Bottom line, yes, you can. You just don't want to. The third one is I will try. Trying is the exit off of the road of doing. When we say I try, we are being wishy-washy. We're saying that we don't want to give the commitment to ourselves that it takes, and we're giving ourselves a way out. And then we can just say, well, I tried. So I usually say in the studio, be Yoda, do or do not. There is no try. When you get up and you do something, you're not trying to do something, you're actually doing it. So if you get up and start working every day towards whatever you would like to see happen, you're actually doing, you're not trying. And as long as you're consistent and you don't quit, it's going to succeed. The difference between someone that you consider successful and someone who is not is that the people that are successful don't quit. They keep going. no matter what. So that's the big key to the thing. The fourth one that I don't allow in the studio is I'm sorry. I don't allow my students to say I'm sorry. And here's the thing, is I'm sorry appropriate? Yes, of course it is. It's not that I don't think the words I'm sorry is appropriate. If someone hurts my feelings, I want them to say I'm sorry, just like you do. But in the studio, when a student is working and they make a mistake singing, they go, oh, I'm sorry. There's nothing to be sorry about. They're in there doing the work. They didn't hurt anybody. There's no reason to say I'm sorry. So I tell them, we don't say I'm sorry in the studio unless you're planning to do harm to another human being. But missing a note or not knowing the words or messing up or not breathing right or whatever, that's not a reason to say I'm sorry. So I don't allow those things. And I think that when we look at things differently, we realize that we do that a lot in life. We apologize for so many things. Now, my blog talks a little bit about explanations and excuses. And what I want to say about that is that we don't need to give excuses and we don't need to give explanations. When we're actually doing something, you don't have to explain it to anybody. You're an adult. You don't owe them an explanation. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. And just keep working on what you're doing. And don't make excuses. Excuses are, again, something a child does. And there's no excuse. We just do. So you just really keep going that way. One of my main ways of continually to stay motivated, and I mentioned it earlier, is by reading. I read a lot. So my favorite way of reading is audiobooks. And I'm just going to tell you that I came by that because my father was totally blind. And he was the top reader in Georgia for the blind with the Georgia Library. Now, he had, back then, they had cassettes and special cassette players that had Braille for readers, and he read in a voracious type of a way. I mean, like hundreds of books. So we used to get these Santa Claus type book bags in. It looked like Santa's toys were coming, and Daddy would read those books over and over. So I learned a love for audiobooks because of my father. So I listened to a lot of audiobooks, and it's very helpful if you're just not somebody that wants to sit down and open a book and read it. Now, my girls, Rachel and Rosemary, they love to open a book and read, and some of you do. So I encourage you to do that. But if it's not your thing, then audiobooks can be. I can keep working and listen to an audiobook, and I think that's really great. And I usually keep a notebook right by me so that I can take notes. I promised in my blog that I would give a thumbs up to some books, some of my favorite ones. So here's a list of 6 of my very favorite books that are helpful to me, that I continually learn by, and I've read several times. First is How to Be a Boss, and that's Bawse by Lily Singh. That is a really, really fun book. And if you know anything about Lily Singh, she's got a major YouTube channel, and she's just really funny. So that's How to Be a Boss by Lily Singh. The second one is Get Out of That Pit by Beth Moore. Beth Moore is my favorite female Bible study teacher, so I love her book, Get Out of That Pit. Number 3, Battlefield of the Mind by Joyce Meyer. It was the first book that I read that helped start me on the path of having better self-talk. So that's a great book to get. Number 4 is the Bible. That's a book that I also keep readily on my iPad and my iPhone because I refer back to my Bible all the time. If you're not a Bible reader, then, maybe one of these other books will be helpful to you. Number 5 is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. He's one of my favorites, and I've read this book over and over and over and over and over again. And number 6 is A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. Now, if you have problems getting really deep into things, then The Power of Now is probably not going to be the first Eckhart Tolle book that you want to read. You probably want to read The New Earth, A New Earth first. So just know that those are my top 6 right now. And then I've got a new list that I'm about to work on reading, and that is going to be helpful to me. So I'm very excited about my new list, and I'll talk more about that maybe on the next podcast about what my new list of books is going to be. And we can go from there when it comes to books. Okay, so now we're beginning to wind up this very first podcast. I'm so excited again. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm going to quickly go down a list of people that I want to say thank you to that have helped me over the years. So probably if you are listening to this podcast, you are on this list. I would say so. So I'm just going to indulge myself for a second, if you do not mind, and have my Academy Award moment so I can give my thanks. So here we go. I'd like to thank Neil Seamer for always speaking the truth to me and accepting me and infinitely loving me. I am so very grateful for you, Neil, and thank you for all the years of voice teaching. I want to thank Jim Luisi for being a source of constant positivity in my life and making the best Cosmos ever. My cousin Susie and Karen, thank you for your listening ears, love, and being my family. I love you beyond words. Landon Lingerfeld, thank you for your beauty and stamina. You have studied with me a long time, and I'm proud of you for your steady work as a professional singer. Girl, never quit. Mara Johnson, never will forget the day you walked in my office. I said to Nelson, do you hear that voice? You are now my greatest asset. You're my assistant. You keep my life running. I couldn't do it without you. Thank you. DJ Curtis, you are a joy and a light in my life. Oh my goodness. You became my child the moment I met you, and I am proud of your work as a professional. Go Hedwig and the Angry Inch. If you are in the Portland, Oregon area, you need to go to the Portland Center Stage and see my DJ as Hedwig. He rocks. It's awesome. I love you, DJ. Micah and Darlene Bone, thank you for your love and care and unconditional support. Plus, I am grateful for the day the incredibly talented Micah Bone walked into my life. Thank you for the laughter, Micah. I love you. Rachel Harris and Carlos Molina, you bring so much love and fire into the studio and my life. Thank you for trusting me. Caroline Shields, words cannot express how I feel about you. You are the most courageous person that I know. You're such a great inspiration, and I'm a better person and a better teacher because of you. I love you. Catherine Lilly, OMG, you are my queen of New York City. Literally, you are such a blessing in my life. I am very proud of your work, from being a student in theater at NYU and now being Miss City of New York. I will be there in May to watch you win that crown of Miss New York. You are going to be Miss New York. Yes, you are. I am very thankful to have you as a student. Preston Barrow, my lovely friend over years. You always are loving, supportive, and kind. You make me smile just because you're alive. You always remind me of who I really am. I love you. Marsha Thompson, your strength is beyond comprehension, and it is only matched by your kind heart. Thank you for being my friend and a wonderful Aunt Marcia to my children. Alyssa Broughton, how proud I am of my girl with the 12 horsepower voice. Look at you loving and learning and growing in New York City. No one else can talk Spider-Man and Disney and Harry Potter with my Jacob, Rachel, and Rosemary as well as you. You warm my heart with your beauty and your grace. Thank you. Annalie and Veronica, keep working. You're going to go far. Both of you make my life better with your bubbly uniqueness. Holly, never quit. You are so sweet and kind. I love teaching you. Shine your light. We love seeing it. Erin Patterson, thank you for helping me keep all of my manure in the right places. The garden of my life is growing because you guide me to use the manure in the right way. Jennifer Wall, my social media guru and fellow life traveler, you bring so much laughter into my life. Your love is infinite. Thank you. Kristen Reedy, keep showing up. You just keep at it. Your wanting to work well challenges me at every lesson. Thank you. Elizabeth Bennett, seeing you gain ground is my greatest reward. You are amazing. Addison Lane, you are a unique gift. You are smart and talented. You help me to come up with new ways of teaching constantly. I improve and move forward because of you. Rachel Isaac, so beautiful inside and out. Watching you bloom and inspire students makes me so happy. You keep on teaching and sharing that joy. Patrick Murray, you are one of the main reasons I keep motivated to keep going. Your love and support over the years is such a blessing to me. I don't want to ever know a world in which you don't exist. Thank you for being my great student and always showing up. Melissa Blackwell, I see you. Thank you for being a part of my life and for living out your truth in front of my very eyes. My life became more complete the day you walked into it. Bob Richards, still being close friends and co-parenting our children is one of the best things in my life. I am grateful to you and have always been grateful to you. Thank you. Harriet Miller, thank you for being more than my mother-in-law. You know how much that means to me. Skylar Smith, just you are the great, big, amazing yes. Thank God you came to the studio. Not only can you sing, but in college, starting your own fitness business and your very own line of activewear. What the heck? From low energy to dynamo, I am so thankful for you. When we teach, we learn. Nancy Walker, you are the warmest person I know. There is no one better. Sherry Thomas, you are the backbone of this studio. Thank you. Daniel Gutlock, your tenacity is amazing. I love you. Paige Carr, what do I say to the person who keeps me beautiful inside and out? Thank you. Robin Chafez, I love you, my friend. I love you. Sally Suttle, my first true friend here. Thank you for teaching me I can be more. And to all my new students, my new little babies, you just keep on walking and keep on growing and keep on learning. Be patient with yourself and give yourself good self-talk. Say yes to yourself every single day. Give yourself a high five and know that you are loved. Welcome to the family. Welcome to the family. All the new podcast people that are listening right now, we appreciate you being here. Oh, I forgot. Nelson, my husband, you teach me kindness, mercy, and love and forgiveness every day. Thank you for supporting all my crazy ideas. Jacob, Rachel, and Rosemary, and DJ. You four are the cream in my coffee, the apples of my eye, the gas I run on. You make my life worth living and show me I can do anything. Lastly, I dedicate the podcast to my beautiful mother, Barbara Daniel. Mama, thank you for everything. Without you, I would not exist. You are my forever war buddy. Now, to all of you people who are new and listening to this podcast, thank you for joining. I hope you learned something today. I hope you took some notes, and I hope this helps you further yourself in motivation and self-talk. Next week, we will be coming back with our last part of the motivation series, and then we will start something new in the month of March. Thank you for being here. I am Crystal McDaniel, and this is The Naked Singer.